What if you read one chapter of Matthew for 28 days straight? I'm going to tell you something that could completely change how you see faith, wisdom, and Jesus' presence in your daily life. This question sounds simple, but it hides a journey that can transform not just what you know about Christianity, but how you live it. For nearly 2,000 years, Christians have discovered that diving into Matthew's words is like building a bridge between the historical Jesus and the Christ who dwells within you today. We're not talking about rushing through just to check off a religious task. We're talking about 28 daily encounters with the text that presents Jesus as the fulfillment of every promise humanity had been waiting for across millennia. Matthew was written by someone who intimately knew both Jewish tradition and the reality of following Jesus. Every word was chosen to show that the carpenter from Nazareth is simultaneously the promised Messiah and the teacher who shows us how to live a full life. And here's what many people don't realize. Matthew has exactly 28 chapters. That's no coincidence. It's as if the gospel was structured to be a complete journey of personal transformation. Imagine waking up every day knowing you'll have a real encounter with Jesus' words, teachings, and personality. Imagine how different it would be to face daily challenges after spending time with the Sermon on the Mount, the parables, or accounts of miracles. 28 days might seem like a short time, but it's exactly the period our brain needs to create new patterns of thinking and behavior. The tradition of reading Matthew sequentially has existed since Christianity's earliest centuries. The Church Fathers discovered that this gospel worked like a complete school of discipleship. St. Augustine said Matthew was like a mirror where each person could see their own faith journey reflected. St. John Chrysostom, known as Golden Mouth for his eloquence, spent months preaching on Matthew alone because he believed this gospel contained all the wisdom necessary for authentic Christian living. But it wasn't just in ancient times that this practice transformed lives. During the Middle Ages, Benedictine monks had the custom of reading Matthew during Advent, preparing their hearts for Christmas. They discovered that 28 days of contemplative reading created a special intimacy with the person of Jesus that lasted far beyond the reading period. And something fascinating happens when you read Matthew this way. Modern neuroscience confirms what ancient Christians knew through experience. Repetitive and contemplative reading of meaningful texts creates new neural connections that strengthen our capacity for empathy, compassion, and practical wisdom. Studies show that people who practice regular contemplative reading develop greater mental clarity, emotional control, and the ability to make wise decisions under pressure. Dr. Andrew Newberg, a neuroscientist specializing in spirituality studies, discovered that meditative reading of sacred texts activates the same brain areas associated with deep peace, interpersonal connection, and creativity. It's as if our brains were programmed to be transformed by this kind of practice. The challenge works like this. For 28 consecutive days, you'll choose a fixed time each day, preferably in the morning, to read one chapter of Matthew. It could be 5 in the morning, after coffee, or before leaving home. What's important is that it's always at the same time. You'll use a physical Bible, not an app, and read the complete chapter without rushing. After reading, you'll spend at least 5 minutes reflecting on what you read, asking one simple question. What is Jesus teaching me today through these words? Write down one phrase or idea that caught your attention most in a notebook, dedicated only to this. Now let me tell you what really happens when you commit to this journey. The first benefit you'll notice is a different mental clarity for facing daily problems. Matthew is full of practical teachings about handling conflicts, making difficult decisions, and maintaining inner peace even in chaotic situations. When you feed your mind every morning with this wisdom, it naturally becomes your first reference for solving complex issues. The second gain is renewed patience with difficult people in your life. Jesus in Matthew teaches extensively about forgiveness, loving enemies, and responding wisely to provocations. It's not magic. It's gradual absorption of a completely different way of viewing human relationships. You'll notice you begin reacting with less anger and more compassion to others' failures. A third benefit that surprises many people is developing a sharper spiritual intuition. Matthew shows Jesus making decisions based not just on human logic, but on wisdom from above. When you expose yourself daily to this way of thinking, your own capacity for spiritual discernment strengthens. You begin perceiving better when an opportunity truly comes from God, or when a decision will distance you from what's best for your life. The fourth gain is a more mature faith that's less dependent on momentary emotions. Matthew presents a human Jesus who faced temptations, fatigue, disappointments, and even anguish. This closeness to Christ's humanity strengthens your own faith in difficult moments, because you realize that following God doesn't mean being free from problems, but having internal resources to navigate them with dignity. Finally, you'll develop a more intimate and less formal prayer life. Jesus in Matthew teaches the Lord's Prayer, but also shows how he himself prayed in specific situations. This daily exposure transforms your prayer life from a religious obligation into a natural and profound conversation with God. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt that spiritual hunger? That sense that you need something deeper in your relationship with God, but didn't know where to start? Or have you tried creating Bible reading habits and always ended up quitting after a few days? Share your experience in the comments. I read every single one, truly. And your honesty might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today to find courage to try again. We're building a community here, not just watching videos in isolation. How do you apply this challenge practically? First, choose your fixed time. I strongly recommend mornings because our minds are more receptive and you ensure completion before daily urgencies take over. Second, choose a specific place in your home where you'll always read. It could be a living room chair, a bedroom corner, the kitchen table. The place creates the ritual, and the ritual strengthens the habit. Third, prepare everything the night before. Leave your Bible open to the chapter you'll read, along with a notebook and pen. This preparation is like making a commitment to yourself. Fourth, set an alarm to remind you, but give the alarm a special name, like Meeting with Jesus or Sacred Moment. Fifth, always begin reading with a simple prayer, asking God to speak to you through those words. Sixth, read the entire chapter, even if it's long. Don't worry if you don't understand everything. Focus on absorbing the text's general spirit. Seventh, dedicate at least 5 minutes to silent reflection. Ask yourself, what stands out most to me in this chapter? What teaching of Jesus can I apply today? Eighth, write in your notebook one phrase or idea that touched you most. It could be a single word, a complete verse, or a personal reflection. Ninth, always end with a prayer of gratitude for what you received and asking for wisdom to live it out during the day. 10th, be flexible with timing if necessary, but never miss a day. If you wake up late one day, read on the bus, during work break, or before bed. What matters is maintaining the 28-day sequence. But before you get too excited, I need to alert you to some important realities. First, this isn't a magic wand that will instantly solve all your spiritual problems. The first few days might even be difficult, especially if you're not used to reading long texts or reflecting in silence. You might feel your mind wandering, have trouble concentrating, or find some chapters repetitive or confusing. Second, other people might not understand or even criticize your new habit. Family members might think you're becoming a fanatic or overdoing the religiosity. Friends might mock you or try to convince you to quit. Prepare yourself psychologically for this and remember that real transformations always generate resistance, both internal and external. Third, you might go through periods of spiritual dryness during the journey. Some days you'll read and feel like the words have no life. It's just a mechanical exercise. This is completely normal and doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Continue, even when you don't feel anything special. Fourth, don't turn this into a competition or reason for spiritual pride. The goal isn't to impress anyone or feel superior to other Christians. It's about personal growth and intimacy with God. If you start using your reading discipline to judge others, you've missed the exercise's central point. Lastly, if you fail one day, don't give up completely. Restart with the next chapter. If you fail many consecutive days, restart from chapter 1. What matters isn't perfection, but loving persistence with your own spiritual growth. Have you ever wondered why so many people start spiritual projects and then abandon them? Often it's because they don't understand that real transformation takes time and happens in layers. During these 28 days with Matthew, you won't become a saint overnight, but you'll plant seeds of wisdom that will continue growing long after the reading ends. The journey I'm proposing won't solve all your dilemmas, but it will give you internal resources you never imagined existed. It will teach you to hear God's voice in everyday details. It will show you that following Jesus is much deeper and more practical than just believing in doctrines. And if you're hesitating, thinking, I don't know if I can do this, let me tell you something. Every person who has transformed something significant in their spiritual life started by doubting their own capacity. The secret isn't having certainty, it's starting even without it. 28 days might seem like a lot or a little depending on your perspective, but I guarantee you one thing. If you truly commit to this journey, on the 28th day you'll look back and realize something changed. Not just in your knowledge about Jesus, but in how you relate to life, to people, and to God Himself. Walk in faith, live with wisdom, and join us for the next What If.